पैसे की नहीं सर पैसों
allocated to this session. You all have many meetings during the day. So many things to say in so little time. If all the speakers remember that they have a time of 4 minutes, they can share their life. Second housekeeping point I was to make is that we are going remotely today by a traffic facilitator. It's not who will be about to play. It's not my honor to invite guests to the stage.
Capacity of domestic resource mobilization, tripling the lending power of multilateral development banks to make them bigger and bolder, and improving our approach to leveraging private finance. Further details must be agreed in Berlin on climate finance. A consensus on actions to take on debt with new instruments to reduce borrowing costs and risks, including from climate shocks, and faster support for countries facing illiquidity and debt distress. And consensus on steps towards a fairer system by amplifying the voice and participation of debtor countries, piloting solidarity levies, and advancing inclusive international tax cooperation. Actions have been taken, but now we must go further. The summit provides a space to discuss how we move forward together. In this session, we will hear from 3 groups of leaders. From multilateral organizations, we look forward to hearing what more you can do to deliver on commitments. From multilateral platforms, to hear about what efforts you will champion. And from country groupings, to focus on what actions you must need and what the global capital. But meetings are not the objective. They are the means to deliver for people who are looking for action now. Let us use this summit to strengthen our cooperation and take decisive steps towards a more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable future.
Agenda, but also a bit of what lies at the origin of this initiative, what's brought us to this point and what we need to go forward. Let me now turn to President of the General Assembly to deliver her remarks, Madam Bell.
Thank you. 4 trillion, that almost unfathomable sum, is the current gap in financing the Sustainable Development Goals. Some may say the number is too high. We can never ignore the fact that we already spend such amounts. Not on schools and hospitals, on medicine. Money matters. It matters to the 272 million children listed as out of school. It matters to the 600 million people in Africa who are waiting for electricity. It matters to hospitals and patients facing a shortage of 11 million healthcare workers. Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, President of ECOSOC, it's an honor to participate in this first biennial summit for a sustainable, inclusive, and resilient global economy. And as the Secretary General has underlined, it's the first of its kind. And sometimes we rush through these meetings and UN institutions, but I would like to take a moment acknowledging that some have fought for years that this could happen. Among them, especially the Secretary General, so I would like to thank him for bringing this important topic not only on the agenda, but fighting for it for a couple of years. Mr. Secretary General. We know that it's so important because we all know the figures. And we know that all pieces of our multilateral system have to work in sync if we are delivering results, particularly on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. But this is also an opportunity to link it to other initiatives we are working on today. an opportunity to ensure that the UN's own reforms, guided by the UN80 initiatives, ensures complementarity and cohesion with the international finance architecture. It's an opportunity to build on the Pact of the Future and the fourth International Conference on Financing for Development. We know that the Pact for the Future adopted in September last year was designed to turbocharge the SDGs. It offers clear recommendations on international financial reform, including giving developing countries a greater say, window or hobble access to finance. In June, member states took this further with a Compromiso de Sevilla, which recognized the gaps in financing and dire need of reform. As the Secretary General once said, we can't build a future for our grandchildren with a system built for our grandparents. And unless we solve the vicious debt trap, we will never deliver on the SDGs. Therefore, change is needed. But we also know change is not easy. It gives them the right tools in place to get the jobs done, and we have some incredible actors here, as mentioned before, the strong ladies leading them to reinvigorate the UN reform agenda, as well as the systematic changes across the international financial architecture, to be collectively and equally on the promises we made. Now is the time to act together to leave no one behind. I thank you.
Thank you.
Government, Secretary General, President of the General Assembly, principals of multilateral institutions, excellencies, distinguished delegates. It is my honor as the President of Economic and Social Council to welcome you to this inaugural biannual summit for a sustainable faces mounting headwinds, and the multilateral systems is under severe strain. Fragmentation is growing. Geopolitical tensions and shifting domestic agendas are reshaping the global landscape as it needs grow sharper. And climate commitments remain far from fulfilled. The world's most vulnerable states adopted the Sevilla commitment, a renewed global framework for financing for sustainable development. This outcome of the fourth International Conference on Financing for Development, which I had the privilege of co-facilitating, ECOSOC is central to this effort. The Sevilla commitment gave the Council new mandates to convene a special meeting on financial integrity, to launch a recurring dialogue on credit rating, and to strengthen the financing. It also called on us to exchange on regulatory frameworks, digital financial services, and to better integrate the body for the economic, social, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development. ECOSOC connects universal promoting coherence across these arenas. We can turn commitments into action and action into an impact. Restore trust in international cooperations. That means easing debt burdens, expanding fiscal in sustainable development. It also means ensuring reforms are inclusive, equitable, and legitimate, and that diversity and gender representation.
I thank the President of ECOSOC. So we now have had three introductory.
Two, we owe it to the adaptive power of private sector with its capacity to innovate and adjust to change. So in that context, what can countries do for their people? The short answer is get your house in best possible order. In this more fragmented world, you can least afford self-inflicted injuries. You have to be determined to set domestic priorities, and we at the IMF see top two. First,
Thank you very much, Managing Director. So it's an inclusive platform where the priorities and needs of African countries can be heard and translated into global action. Where vulnerabilities are rising and the cost of capital is disproportionately high. These challenges move into a cycle of slow development, structural dependency, and missed opportunities.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Honorable Chair, Madam President of the General Assembly, distinguished delegates. Yes, I would like to respond to your question first. My focus will be definitely on the youth, young generation. Bangladesh is just emerging to an uprising of the young people in Bangladesh, giving their lives to protest against the misrule, against the corruption, against the actions taken against the interest of the people. And Bangladesh is a very unique country in a sense. Majority of the population are young people. Half the population of Bangladesh is under the age of 26, a total population of 180 million. So this is a unique case, but not something that is different from other countries. Aspirations and capability of the young people. So I will focus on that. And particularly in this uprising, not only the young boys are fighting in the street, it's the young girls themselves came out of their classrooms, came out of their dorms, came out of their houses in an enormous number. So it's not only the boys who are raising their voices, the young girls also. So I think that has to be focused, whatever we're taking, the rest generation will be a very young generation wherever we are. So this is one particular focus I want to make. It's an honor for me to address this August gathering on behalf of the least developed countries. We gather here at a time when conflicts, climate shocks, debt distress, and pandemics have derailed our hard-earned development gains. The annual SDG financing gap now stands beyond $4 trillion. The LDCs suffered the most as extreme poverty rises with diminishing development assistance, decreasing foreign direct investment, and widening digital divide. In many of our countries, the annual GDP growth continues to lag behind this 7% SDG target. I stand before you with a clear message from over 1 billion people. We want peace, dignity, and opportunity for sustainable development. And in this context, let me highlight a few key priorities for the LDCs. First, the Doha Program of Action must move from promises to progress. The development partners must fulfill a real commitment of 2%, 20% scale-up grants and concessional lending, and ensure that financing aligns with national priorities. Second, the debt crisis is a pressing systemic challenge. LDCs urgently need immediate liquidity support, broader debt relief, and climate-linked state contingent debt instruments. Reforming the global debt framework has become an imperative of our time. Third, to address the far-reaching impact of climate change on LDCs, climate finance must be scaled up urgently with simplified access. We urge international community to enhance climate support and ensure effective technology transfer to our countries. Disaster resilience for LDCs must be strengthened and loss and damage fund operationalized. Finally, the global financial architecture must be overhauled to make it equitable, representative, and fit for purpose. We call the quota and governance reforms in the Bretton Woods institutions, expanded representation and meaningful role of LDCs in their policy making. Stronger coordination between the UN and these institutions is essential for inclusive economic governance. Excellencies, many LDCs are entering the graduation pipeline, yet they are highly vulnerable and fiscally constrained. We urge for continuous support and coordinated withdrawal measures so that their graduation remains sustainable and irreversible. The gap between promise and delivery is not to be measured in just statistics, but in their lost and in their lives lost and human potential wasted. International community must match pledges with old actions. Let this summit inspire hope, advance justice, and chart a more equitable path for the world's most vulnerable. Before I conclude, I will also add one more thing about what I mentioned about Bangladesh, and it's repeated in Nepal. So young people rising against the government taking down. So it's not extreme phenomenon. I think this is going to be a norm. Young people expressing themselves in a very expressive way, which may not be very conducive in some cases. But before we burst into those kind of expressions, we should be taking consideration of making the life for the young people different than it had been. Young people represent a new future. And this is a very different kind of generation than we have been going through in our lives, in our history. So my attention that I want to draw, we have to reorient our thinking in terms of the young people. Thank you very much, sir.